I'm Jenny Momsen. I'm a faculty member from Biological Sciences here with John Buncher from the physics department, and we're both from the discipline-based education research program, where we study how to make learning experiences better for undergraduates. And today we're going to be focusing on how you can revise your course syllabus, because it's one of the first things students see and experience about your course. We can revise it to help begin laying that foundation for creating equitable and inclusive learning environments, which may be naughty words in the federal government, but are still good words, I think, for us to be using here. All right, so today we are going to introduce you to a syllabus rubric. This is a published resource, and we have this resource available for you as well in just a second. So we're going to use that rubric to begin analyzing our syllabus to identify areas that we might improve, starting as early as the fall semester, perhaps. And then reflect on your current syllabus to identify revisions that reflect you and your philosophy of learning and teaching, and identify elements that you might add or revise to promote better inclusivity. Keep going. Okay. So we want to begin by first reflecting individually. And if you click this QR code, which I tested last night, but it probably won't work today, this is a link to the resources for today. It includes this slide deck, and it also includes, dare I move to the inclusive syllabus? It includes an example of an annotated inclusive syllabus. Thank you for the thumbs up. That syllabus comes from my class for this past spring, actually, of introductory biology, Bio 151. And I've annotated it. You can feel free to add questions and comments on it as well. But I've noted places where I have actively tried to create an inclusive and welcoming syllabus. And so take a look at it and think about how this syllabus might differ from your own. And as you're doing that, think about when the last time was that you might have critically examined your syllabus. I know a lot of us get the syllabus for the course from the previous instructor and make some tweaks, some changes, but don't really critically think about what we're communicating in our syllabus and why. And then a few things for you to think about in your own course syllabus. So I'll be quiet now for like 2 minutes. Okay, hopefully you were doing the assigned task. So as promised, we're going to introduce an inclusive equity rubric, which comes from the Meadows et al. Paper from 2023. And again, that is in the resources that we shared with you today. In this rubric, it identifies 4 main syllabus categories that comprise 21 components. And we are going to go into depth on all of those today. No, we are not. We don't have time for that. We're going to introduce you to the 4 broad categories and then a few of the components that we think are especially important. They're all important, but things that we feel really resonate with us. The first category is about setting course expectations, and there are 6 components that comprise this. The first one that we think is important to share, no surprise if you know me, is about grading policies and assignments. This is a really important component to include to kind of break or pull back the curtain so students understand what it is they're going to be assessed on and how they're going to be assessed. Elements that you might include to get to the inclusive level include having drop scores or allowing students to retake assignments, talking about the range of assessment types and why you're using those assessment types. Our students are, even at the introductory level, they're on the cusp of fully adulthood, and we know adults really want to understand why. How is this assignment, how is this assessment going to help me learn this material and be successful in my career? Sharing with students how they can succeed on each type of assessment, and maybe even including an assignment that is culturally relevant. We won't talk about academic integrity. Course objectives, always share these with students and share using personal pronouns instead of just saying students will be able to, we will, right? Or you will, or, ways to include the students using those language. Try and think about tasks and skills that are applicable to daily life, or helping students see that these skills are applicable to not just what you're doing in class, but other classes and their careers. And you may include diversity-centered objectives. Of course, we want to list required materials, share important course dates. What I found interesting about this was a big change for me in my syllabus this year, is I have course-specific dates, but I also bring in university-specific dates, like when is the drop ad deadline? And some folks even go so far as to talk about, oh, you can drop with how much financial aid, that sort of a thing. That really helps students make informed decisions about whether or not they should, withdraw from the class at this time. I'm going to turn it over now to John to talk about disruptive events.
Hi, I'm John. All right. Yeah, so the next category talks about disruptive events. So the ones that we're going to kind of highlight is so that kind of a general absence or tardiness policy. So kind of hitting that inclusive level would be a policy that clarifies that some absences and tardies are acceptable and does allow for some in those conditions under which they're allowed. A general makeup work policy, an inclusive policy for makeup exists, or a policy for makeups exists and is equitable. So examples would be all students have access to makeup or late or late penalties to allow for life circumstances, and to communicate with the instructor regarding extenuating circumstances. Just personally, this was something for me that changed during COVID, because I was always fairly flexible when students asked for, I need to turn something in late. But then with COVID disrupting everybody's life, I kind of sat back and thought about, well, if I don't communicate that in my syllabus, because in my syllabus was a policy, well, it's due when it's due, and that's kind of it. And you only get the official excused absences. So I was thinking about who was I excluding by not communicating that idea to the students that you can ask for those kinds of things, because there's plenty of students that just won't. And so now that's explicitly in there of just like, I understand life happens. We could probably work something out. Talk to me. Title IX policies are obviously important. Usually they're required by universities. Threatening and disruptive behavior policy, university sanctioned absences policy. A lot of these are often required. And offensive content notification. Free for course has this kind of warning the students that some content may be offensive, and students have opportunities to respond by notifying you or finding alternative course or assignments. Again, these are all kind of detailed in the paper, which is in the resources folder that Jenny linked. But we're kind of going to try and focus today, rather than just listing all of them and talking about all of them, the ones that are maybe most applicable to the widest number of instructors and that are kind of the easiest to encounter, or kind of easiest to implement, even like makeup policies and absence and tardiness things. For getting help, kind of explaining office hours. So explaining what they're for. Students might not have even heard the term office hours before. Can we even call them office hours still, or did the University Senate pass something? I thought, yeah, I was wondering about this. Like there's, some places are recently NDSU, they suggest calling them help hours now, because to know that is students are welcome to actually come and show up to them. So including a statement about making appointments outside of office hours, inviting the students to do that, and that it's okay, that they're not restricted to just a couple of hours that you have on your syllabus. Offering meetings in a flexible format if they need to, remote in or something, if they can't make it to campus during your office hours. Contact information, most of us have that in the syllabus, but multiple forms of contact. So just kind of where you are, your email address. Models inclusions of preferred instructor pronouns is helpful if allowed by your institution. We'd suggest doing it anyway. Encouraging student contact. So just again, welcoming the students and encouraging to come to your class, or not class, sorry. Well, that too, but your office hours, and to ask for help and to normalize the help seeking. And just to say, I expect most of you to need to come in and ask a question. Like, and that's totally fine, because you don't know it already. Otherwise you wouldn't need to be in the class, right? So they may need help with things. And then it can also be helpful just to list general campus resources. So things like, how do they access mental health resources on campus that the university might provide, just to give them a little bit more places for accessing that. Yeah, Jenny, why don't you come on back up? You can take on the next category.
That's okay. We're not going to belabor the unique student groups, but there are a lot of statements that come often at the end of the syllabus about accommodations, veterans and militaries and those sorts of things. And what I've started doing, and you'll see in my syllabus, is we have usually required policy language that is boring. And then I have additional language on top of that to explain to students, why is this policy here? Why is it important? Why is it important to me? And how am I enacting this policy in the classroom? And that comes about with especially like the academic honesty statement that we have to, I talk about what that is and why that's important. And then in some of my syllabi, I also connect to AI and why I don't like AI in my classrooms. Like I said, accommodations policy for students with disability. Use accessible language, right, to explain the policy. Don't bury it in whatever required language you might have. Keep your tone positive and encouraging. Link out to Cater here at NDSU or whatever your institution has to help those students who need accommodations. I actually had a student who her accommodation came in the day before the final exam. And I was like, I'm so glad this is in place. This is fantastic. But secretly, I was like, I'm so sorry it took us the whole semester to get us to this place. And then you could also expand the scope to students who might not be formally recognized or formally registered with the center, kind of moving towards that universal design approach in your syllabus. We should include policies on religious absences, the mental health resources. I put a specific link to my syllabus so you can see exactly where this is, because that's just something that I've noticed is not often in our course syllabi. It also changes frequently. And as we are updating our website, it's going to move around. And so keep up to date, test your links at the beginning of every semester because they change all the time. But students, I've had them say on my evaluations, thank you for including those resources. I actually did use them this semester. It's not every student by all means, but sometimes just seeing it in multiple places can help them get to the help that they need. Again, veteran military statement. I had another student this semester who was like, whoa, I'm currently in the military. I didn't know I had all these resources on campus. And I was like, well, let's get you connected because we got some help systems for you. And you can include also a land acknowledgement. So we wanted to give some time, I know we got started a little bit late, for you to try it out. So to pull up a syllabus that you have or think about something, maybe you're teaching it this summer or a course for the fall semester, and think about your grading policy and your assignments, your office hours. I want to make a quick statement about those. We call them student help hours. I have two kids who are finishing up at Fargo North High, and what they call them instead of office hours or even student help hours is they call them Spartan hours because they are the Spartans. And so I've started calling mine herd hours because more and more schools, K-12 schools, are doing something similar to that. And so just plugging into your school's mascot and saying, yeah, these are herd hours. Anytime we can overlap with something the students already know and are familiar with, the better it can be. The other thing with office hours is that I sometimes say, hey, if you come to herd hours this week, we're going to have this specific activity that we're going to do. So if you want more help with Punnett squares, we got you covered this week. And that's a way to get students in and asking questions and practicing with you. And then the third component that we want to focus on is our general makeup work policies for our students. So review your syllabus. Think about where you stand. What resonates for you personally? What is it that you are willing to do, willing to implement in your courses, and how are you going to communicate that to your students? You can look at the rubric from Meadows et al. To think about, well, am I already at the minimum for being inclusive, or can I go above and beyond? Are there other elements that I could add in? And as time permits, you can share in your group some of the revisions you're thinking of, and we'll walk around and ask. You can ask questions. We'll answer them if we can. Anything else? So that's what we wanted to introduce you to, is this rubric, and then help you think about your current syllabus that you are working on for the next semester. Okay. Any questions, Bradley, that you want to share? Or on Zoom? Hello, Zoomlandia. All right, pull up a syllabus. I think we're technically at time because the next session starts at 10:50. So you've got about 9 or so minutes for bathroom break and to find your next session. All right. Thank you all for coming. And we're at NDSU. You can reach out to us anytime, ask questions. We're happy to chat. Thanks.